Welcome back to the Applied Leadership Podcast, where we've got two friends, one question, half an hour, and zero script. My name is Blayne Smith. As always, with me is my good friend and partner, Brandon Young. And we've got a good question, a timely question, I guess, for this episode. And it's really about goal setting, New Year's resolutions, that kind of thing. So we're recording this in January of 2024. A lot of folks will have recently thought a little bit about their goals for the year, whether it's personally or for their business. Surely a lot of folks will have set some New Year's resolutions. I think today's the 16th of January, so some of those may have already fallen by the wayside, present company included. We'll see. But yeah, it's a good question. And this is another one that we get asked a lot, which is, how do you think about goal setting? Do you have any New Year's resolutions? We'll send out our fourth annual letter here pretty soon, where we always talk a little bit about our intentions for the year and how we did over the previous year. And it's just that time of year to think a little bit about this, and hopefully we can provide a little bit of insight into how we do it, and that might be helpful for some of the folks out there. So let's talk a little bit about it. I'll send it over to you, Brandon. When someone asks you, do you have any resolutions this year? Do you think about goals? How do you go about it? What do you typically say?
Well, I start with that I don't particularly prescribe to the resolution approach. I find that resolution...
Another one of those, huh? Okay.
Yeah. I find I'm one of the many... It might be kind of in vogue right now to say that, maybe. But I just don't. I don't find resolutions to be super helpful, because I find that they're usually a recipe for disappointment, and then feeling like I failed, and then getting a case of the F-its, as my therapist likes to say, and then just kind of like going down the wrong direction and saying, I can't do it. That might be a little dramatic, but
it's hard to fall off the wagon if you were never on it.
Exactly.
Right?
I'm like, I have no expectations of myself, so it's fine. What are your expectations? But I do have expectations. I think a number of years ago, we started using the language of intentions a little bit more frequently than resolutions, right? And intentions, I think, is a really good way of looking at it, because when you look at an entire year, you've got a long journey ahead of you, God willing, and we just don't know what's going to happen. But I think intentions, and by that I mean a thematic approach to the year, is essentially what resonates for me, at least, especially over the last, probably been doing this about 4 or 5 years now, largely influenced by my friend Blayne Smith here, and got on that tip a while ago. But I find that trying to condense it into something that is very clear and actionable is quite beneficial and helpful to me. And I'm actually, what I do is I take basically the second half of December every year. So ever since I left home when I was 18 to join the Army, and got Christmas Exodus, on the December 18 to January 2nd, I have found that whether I was in the Army or corporate America or the social impact sector or being a small business owner, basically that's about the time in America where very little gets done. People don't want to make big decisions. People mostly are looking to ensure that they've gotten all the gifts for the ones that they love, that they, get a little bit of eggnog here and there, and maybe get some rest and engage in the holiday season. And I'm definitely, I feel like, look at the, I don't know if there was a league for this, I'm going to put myself maybe top 3 or 5. I don't know, because I do a pretty good job at shutting down and really embracing the season and a time of reflection. And I think back on the year prior, and I start to think forward. And what I have found is that typically offers the intention so that a theme emerges, an intention emerges for the year when I really invest in that and take the time to do it. And so what I do is I actually take that intention for the year and I write it down and I put it literally right in front of me where I'm looking every day. So this was my 2023 intention, was joyful and content completions. I was looking for 2023 to be a season of joyful and content completions. It was a year that I graduated from Denver Seminary. And it was, quite joyful. There were some last situations to get over the goal line where I just had to be content with what the result was, and wasn't super stoked about some of, my performance here and there, like who cares if I get an A or a C or a B or whatever. I learned that I had to be content with some of that. And also, we had a lot of really great completions. So that was kind of last year. And as I was reflecting on some of that stuff, and I'll talk a little bit about, process in a bit after we hear from you, what I found really emerged thematically for me going into 2024 is that this is just a year of renewal, a year of just like some really beautiful, fresh energy and action in areas that I'm already doing. So, we talk a lot about, kind of staying the course, and, we had a wonderful year last year in our business, and we have just had so many great opportunities to go deep with existing partners, to grow new relationships with new partners. We've met leaders from all across walks of life and doing all different amazing things out there in the world. And we're going to keep going with a renewed, refreshed sense of energy to see what happens and where we go. So renewal has just been a really powerful and present theme for me and intention going into this year.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And I echo a lot of what you said. Goals is an interesting topic for me. And, for a little bit of context, as a young person, I was very goal oriented, hard charging, really, trying to get stuff done all the time, very focused on achievement. And so goals is a natural part of that. And I would every semester in college think about what kind of GPA do I want to have at the end of the semester? What do I want to score on the PT test? And I would have numeric things written out. This is what I'm shooting for. And honestly, I think that probably served me well at that time of my life. And I continued with those things. And in the Army, there's even a formal process where on your NCO evaluation or your officer evaluation, you have to state these things out. What do you want to do in the coming year?
Yep.
For whether it's weapons qualification or what do you want your platoon to accomplish and all those kinds of things. So we all got very accustomed to setting concrete goals, and then we got beat over the head with the SMART goals, right? Every goal's got to be smart and specific and measurable and all that stuff. And so I'm no stranger to goals, and I think they've served me well in general as someone who's already kind of achievement minded. But as I got a little older, I started to realize that being someone who is very driven and achievement minded already, that setting goals wasn't really changing the quality of my life or the outcome by a great deal, maybe by a little bit, but not by a lot. It wasn't something I really needed in order to propel me forward. Mm-hmm. And so I started thinking a little less originally about outcome goals. Like, what do I actually want to accomplish? No kidding, numerically. And I started thinking a bit more about behavior goals. So rather than focusing on the outcome, I want to have goals this year for things I want to do. And I believe that if I behave in these ways, then the outcome will take care of itself. So a simple way to think about that would be, rather than run a marathon in 3:30, that's an outcome goal. Maybe the behavior goal is do 3 focused running sessions a week, every week, with the belief that if you do that, you're going to get there, right? So I transitioned to that at one point, and I think that was a little bit more helpful because it kept me focused on what I was doing on a regular basis. But I soured of that pretty quickly as well, because it all felt like I was kind of always monitoring myself or having to judge myself on whether or not I was achieving my goals. And I ultimately just found it kind of dissatisfying. Again, me not being the kind of person that really needed that stick all the time. I don't think it was making my life better. And so I eventually drifted toward this way of going about it that I would call themes. So I just kind of kept getting broader. And I would think more about what do I really want to focus on in general this year. And I think I'm smart enough to figure out in the moment or in any given week or month whether or not this decision, this activity, this food choice, whatever, is in keeping thematically with what I'm trying to do with my life right now. And I actually found that quite liberating, and I've had a lot of success over the last 5-6 years thinking more about having a real theme for the year. And I really like what you brought up about reflection, because it's difficult to have a forward-looking set of goals or themes if you haven't thought about how things have been over the previous year or 2 or 3. And for me, it almost always kind of bubbles up or emerges. I never just sit down with the blank page and like, well, what do I want to accomplish this year? And it just comes to me.
1.
I have to think. Yeah, exactly.
2.
I have to think back on how things have gone and how I've felt, and look, with a pretty close eye at what was I trying to do last year and how did that go? And if it went well, why? And if not, why? And something tends to emerge if I'm just being kind of emotionally and intellectually honest with myself. And so I've really tried hard to do that. And then but the last thing I'll say is I think that I'm starting to find room again to having a little bit more pointed and specific objectives with things I want to do. I've almost drifted a little bit too far in that direction at times. And I find myself having a bit more hunger for putting something out on the calendar or putting a stake in the ground and saying, I'm going to go get that specific thing this year. And I'm going to marshal some resources to make that happen. Because if I'm just being honest, you and I have pretty good lives. We have pretty comfortable lives.
Mm-hmm.
Our families are healthy.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing fine financially. Our business is healthy. And we're not working ourselves to death. We've got a lot of space to think about things and enjoy our lives. And that's all wonderful. And I can't help but feel like there are times when I'm just losing my edge a little bit. And it's an edge that I don't want to have just for the sake of doing more and more and more. But I like the idea of being a sharp, prepared, capable person. And I want to make sure that I'm continuing to do things in my life that allow me to be that kind of person. And I'm not like preparing for the apocalypse or anything, but it's just part of who I am and who I've always wanted to be. And I've always found that when I steer myself a little bit too far away from my really driven competitive side, oftentimes I do that for good reason. But if I go a little bit too far in that direction, I start to feel a little not myself, because I cannot deny that that is part of who I am. And so it's always a healthy balance of, can I think philosophically and thematically about where I'm going big picture with my life or with our business and trust myself to do things that are consistent with that? Or do I need to sprinkle in some more pointed objectives that I'm, no kidding, going to do this every morning, or I'm going to sign up for that thing and make sure that I'm ready to toe the line. And so I'm kind of getting back to a little bit more of that this year, and I'm happy to talk in specific about it, but that's how I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, I really like that a lot. And I think that what you're pointing out is that it doesn't have to be so black and white. We started this episode with, me saying a little tongue in cheek, like, I have no expectations of myself, right? That's not actually true. We know that that's not actually true. And setting intentions is not mutually exclusive from having objectives and goals. You can actually start to incorporate both, because I can really relate to what you're saying about, being a very driven person. I mean, I've been a driven person my entire life. That's just the way that, God knit me together, and I'm cool with that. And I also need to find ways to balance that out, right? Like if everything's a race, a competition, an achievement, then, honestly, I'm not a very enjoyable person to be around. So I don't think anybody really is, if everything is a race, and we know because we've been in those contexts. But I think what you mentioned there is a little bit of that, and I don't say this lightly, but warrior ethos that is so ingrained in you as a man. It's the same thing that's ingrained in me. And, it's good to challenge ourselves still. It's good to set an objective on the calendar and say, no, I want to do that. I want to tackle 214ers this year. I want to challenge myself in ways that I know will be hard and won't wreck my body. I want to do things that are challenging. And what I have found in my reflection, and this year I actually did something a little different, actually. J.R. Briggs with Kairos Partnership. He's great stuff out there. He's written a wonderful book called The Sacred Overlap and has a really great newsletter called 5 Things in 5 Minutes. He put out something that was a little bit of a guide. I think it was like 12 questions looking back, 12 questions looking forward. And really, I spent a lot of time with that over the holiday and a cup of coffee in my notebook, just kind of thinking through. And so I really appreciated having a guide to ask questions like, what parts of this last year did I feel like I was really just on, like really felt like it was great, and what were some of those big successes? Again, it's not mutually exclusive from achieving, and what were some of the things that really felt like they were a miss this year, and what are some of the things that I need to let go of in my leadership moving forward, and just different things like that. And I just found it to be really beneficial, and being a man of action myself, because that's just how I'm knit together. What I find to be really valuable, and this is just taking that construct and then kind of pulling in my own personality, my own rhythm of life. Someone might even say a rule of life, is to kind of put things in spheres for me. And being more action oriented, I generally have 3 spheres of life that I am functioning out of. It's either serving, sharpening, or shaloming, which is a made-up word, but I'm okay with that. So serving, whether it be through our partnerships, through our business, whether it be through, the opportunity to mentor or disciple young people in the community, whether it be through marriages that Kelly and I serve at, with our church, or volunteering on the board of directors for the Gallant Few, which is something that I will be starting this year. Different areas of service where I get to invest, my time, my talents, my treasures in some senses. And then sharpening, I look at, spiritual, physical, mental, relational, citizenship aspects, different aspects of a rich life, and say, how am I going about sharpening myself? So physical, for example, 5 to 6 times a week, I'm working out. I work out 5 to 6 times a week. I rest on Sunday. That's what I do. And then shaloming, seeking quality time, seeking stillness in nature, adventuring with my family, with my loved ones, with my friends, things like that. These are different ways that I kind of organize my efforts throughout the year. And I have found that to be a really rich practice, where if you were to look, at my diagram here at the center, I've got, faith is at the center of my life, my faith in Jesus. So the cross is at the center, and then I have names around it. So, Kelly, Jaden, Ellie, Blayne, close friendships and business partnerships and relationships. These are the time and the people that I want to invest in as I go about the process of the serving, the sharpening, the shaloming. And that's how I've kind of organized mine, which I'm happy to descend into the particulars of any of those.
Yeah, I really like that framework. That's good, Brandon. I've not heard that before. And I think you could look at it, you could use any words you want, but my understanding of it is it's spend time giving to others, giving of yourself for others, spend time growing yourself, whether it's just for your own sake or so that you can be better service to others. And then spend some time just living and enjoying your life, which is a pretty critical thing to do. And I think many of us and a lot of people listening will probably be pretty good at developing themselves and serving others, but maybe not so good at actually living and enjoying their life. And I think that's a good 3-part framework. I've not thought about it quite that way, but I like that a lot. To think a little bit more specifically about kind of setting goals for the year, one of my highlights from last year, and I think one of yours too, was the time we spent in February up in Breckenridge thinking really hard about our business. Yes. Basically to that point. We didn't really look just back over the previous year. We kind of looked back at our business since its inception. Yeah. And it was so informative just to spend a couple of days locked in a room, making slides and building spreadsheets and really making sure we understood our own business really well. That massively informed what we decided we wanted to focus on in 2023 and the intentions we wanted to set. And some of those were somewhat thematic. We talked about wanting to challenge ourselves and press ourselves to keep growing. We wanted to feel that sense of nervousness and adventure in our business. Some of them were more specific that, we wanted to grow revenue, et cetera. But having the ability to really understand where we were at and where we came from was so important with that. And so I've done a lot of that in my personal life when I think about this year. And as you know, last year was a huge year of transition for us as a family, because we moved twice effectively. We moved from Florida to Maine on June 1st. And then we spent 3 months living in a home we rented. And then we moved again into a home that we purchased. So it was a lot of upheaval, a lot going on in the family with all the kids and everything. It was a dynamic year to say the least, not to mention our business grew a ton and we were on the road a lot. So there was a lot going on. And I felt very confident most of the time. And I felt, secure and loved and like I had my hands on the steering wheel for the most part. But looking back at the year kind of in totality, I was able to acknowledge that, that was quite a ride. And there are some things I want to do to feel more settled, more grounded, more focused going into this year. And I think you mentioned renewal, which has been really important. Like, let's come at this year with our feet firmly planted on the ground with some renewed energy and enthusiasm toward all the wonderful things we already have going for us, which is just a great place to be. And one of the ways that I want to do that personally is I really want to show up just kind of as the best truest version of myself that I can. And some of that involves taking care of myself and doing some things to be that way. But some of that involves a little bit of a mindset shift. So I'll share kind of what I'm focused on this year. On one half of the equation, I've thought a lot about, this is a little bit of an odd topic, but it's related. I thought a lot about dopamine. And you and I've talked some about this. But I've thought a lot about the world we live in and just the amount of media we're consuming all the time, and really taking an inventory of, what are we putting in our bodies? And I think a lot of folks, and myself included, have gotten very comfortable kind of up and down regulating our mood and our mindset with exogenous things, right? Whether that's your coffee in the morning to kind of get you up, whether it's a beer or a glass of wine in the evening to kind of settle you down or kind of mark the transition in the day, all of these things. And everyone's kind of got their drug of choice, so to speak. And so one of the things that I've committed to in January, and we'll kind of see how far it goes, is just what I would call no free dopamine. So that's no social media or video games or things like that you might get a little bit of a dopamine hit from, but it's also no alcohol, no caffeine, no sugar. So anytime I might feel a little anxious or bored or want to procrastinate from my work, it's natural to click over to a social media site or pick up your phone and see what's there, or go grab a snack or get another cup of coffee. These are all things that I think an outside person would look at my life and be like, you have sort of normal, healthy relationship with all these things. Yeah. I probably do. Yeah. But I think I have to strip it all away, at least for a while, for me to really get comfortable with kind of who I am and how I feel without any of it, and just see where we go from there. And I got to tell you, we're halfway through the month or 16 or 17 days in. And it's been awesome so far. Not super easy at all times, but it's been great. So that's one half of it, is me just thinking a lot about showing up in that way. And the other half of it is, we've talked a lot recently about the difference between striving to be a great man or a great person versus trying to be a good one. And again, I really drifted and was thinking a lot about being the best dad I can, the best husband I can, a member of my community. And I do find it much more important in the grand scheme of things to be a good man at the end of the day than to be a great man, whatever that means, right? As I thought more about that and really reflected on it, it occurred to me that maybe that was, while true, a bit of a protective mechanism. And so one of the things I really want to lean into this year is I don't want to shy away from the opportunity to be great or to pursue excellence in some of the things that I'm involved in. And some of that is in our business. I think we have an amazing opportunity ahead of us, and there's no reason that we can't be absolutely great at what we do. We've got a book that we just finished writing that's going to come out probably early next year. And I want to lean into, not just saying, it's just going to be a little book. Like, there's no reason it can't be a great book. And I want to give it everything we've got. And that's even, again, including my physical health and wellness. I'm up at 5 a.m. going to CrossFit pretty much every day again, because I don't see any reason that I can't be ripped or absolutely in the best shape of my life. There's no reason I can't be. It might be harder than it was 20 years ago, but there's no reason that can't be true. And even if it doesn't sort of fully come to life, I think that I'm going to be an absolutely better version of myself this year, having committed to striving for greatness, than I would have if I just, said I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing because it's working okay. So anyway, I've poked myself in the chest a little bit at the beginning of this year, and I found it to be beneficial. So anyway, that's quite personal, but I'll tell you that's where I'm at, and that's how I'm thinking about it.
I love it. Yeah, I love everything about it, and I'd be lying if I didn't say that part of the renewal intention that I have for this year probably includes that, we'll probably get some edits back on the manuscript from the publisher. So we're ready to renew some of those portions as we need to, but I totally agree with you. We have the opportunity here. We've spent a lot of time and invested a lot of our heart and our experiences. We'll be sharing some very vulnerable experiences that occurred both early in the war, but also that occurred after we separated from service. And, there's no reason that can't be beneficial for others. And we do believe in it because we do think that it's going to be a great book. So we're going to go for that. So I totally agree with you on that. And I really appreciate your perspective on no free dopamine. One of the things that I have come out of my time of reflection over the holidays, and as a part of that intention as I'm moving forward here, is I've just become so aware of how much my phone degrades my quality time with the people that are around me. It is just, whether it through discussions with my family or just observations of being in rooms and just noticing how much we are on our phones. This is well documented, and yet it's one of those things that I'm going to ask myself, well, what am I going to do about it? And so just a simple thing, one of the tactics that I employed a couple years ago was that, the phone never goes into the bedroom. It just doesn't, it stays downstairs. What I have done now, and what I'm doing is as a small tactic, is I've actually removed the phone from the common areas. And now when I am in the house, it's over in the front room, and I'm typically in the family room or, in the kitchen or something like that. So it's completely away from me at this point in time. And I have already seen in the 16 days of the year that provides such value in our quality time, such value in our ability to actually, talk. And I'll honestly just sit there quietly. If I don't have anything to do, if I'm not, folding laundry or in a conversation or cooking dinner or whatever, I'll just sit there and think. I don't have the dexterity for that. Yeah, I actually bought a guitar when I was 13 because, guitar players are like the coolest, obviously. And I think as far as I got was maybe Enter Sandman or the beginning of that. And that was just about it.
Oh, yeah. Smoke on the Water, probably, for sure.
Yeah, maybe a little bit of that. But it looked really good in my room for about 2 years, and then I sold it. So there's my guitar story. That's what I got.
Wow. I'd love to hear from anybody whose New Year's resolution is to learn to play the guitar. I bet there's a bunch of them out there.
Yeah. I'd also like to hear from you in December of 2024.
If anybody's looking to sell a really good guitar cheap, then hit me up.
Yeah. But no, those are some of the things, and also I really resonate with the idea of, challenging ourselves. Like I have come to a point where I feel the staleness of my fitness regiment, and I've already started, doing things. Talk about renewal. I'm back in the hot yoga studio because that is just something else. I love it. It's so good. I hadn't been in the studio for a bit, and I got back into it, and I'm glad I'm doing it. Got into the kickboxing gym at Factory X Muay Thai. Getting out there and banging again, and that's good. And not dissimilar from you. I'm not over here, prepping for some battle on my street or anything like that. But as you and I were sharing over the holidays, a wonderful, wonderful quote from Miyamoto Musashi: "Better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war." Nothing but pure, gems right there. But it also, I think what it reminds me is that, I've been a warrior as long as I can remember. It's just been a part of how I am knit together. And we can grow and we can reorient, for example, physical objectives from a performance mindset to a wellness mindset, and still find ways to challenge ourselves. And so I know I'll be finding ways to challenge myself throughout the year. For example, I know I'm going to do Run Ranger Run later on in the year, which is going to be a Gallant Few is bringing back that gem, and it's going to be a fun challenge where I'm going to rack up a bunch of miles. And so I better make sure that my body's ready for that. So that's what I'll be doing.
I'm glad to hear that. That's a positive aside.
Yeah, there you go. So
I can't wait.
Yeah. But anyways, hey, thanks for listening this time, gang. And we're sure glad to share some of our intentions, some of the ways that we think about this and the ways that we go about this. We know that there are a bajillion ways to go about constructing a pathway or a rhythm, a framework, a rule of life for your life. We'd love to hear what you guys are doing out there. Shoot us a note at contact@appliedleadershippartners.com. And as always, if you got some questions that you'd like to hear us chop up, send them to that email as well. Other than that, we'll see you guys next time.